Namaskar and welcome to Sansad Television. I am Vishal, Dahiya, and you're watching our show Perspective, where we bring you detailed analysis of key national and international issues. Today, we're going to talk about India's defense exports, which have reached an all-time high of 15,920 crore rupees in the financial year 2022-2023. Now, terming this as a clear manifestation of India's talent and the enthusiasm towards Make in India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that a government will keep supporting efforts to make India a defense production hub. Now, the major defense equipment exported during last 5 years include weapon simulators, a tear gas launcher, torpedo loading mechanism, alarm monitoring and control, a night vision monocular and binocular, lightweight torpedo and fire control system, armored protection vehicle, weapons locking radar, HF radio, coastal surveillance radar, etc. In the last few years, the government has in fact taken a series of measures to promote domestic defense production and boost defense exports as well. And today we'll take a look at all those steps and also try and understand how the defense production ecosystem is coming along in India and how this is giving a boost to the defense exports of indigenous defense items as well. And for more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of experts. Let me first introduce them to you, all of them in the studio today with me. Let me first introduce them to you. Dr. Rajiv Nayan is with us, Senior Fellow, IDSA, joining us. We also have with us Mr. Ajay Banerjee, Senior Defense Journalist, and Mr. Sunil Mishra, Director General of SIDM, is also with us representing the industry. Welcome, all of you gentlemen, to Sansad Television. Let me first begin with you, Mr. Mishra, only because we would like to understand, since industry is a very key element of this, how is it coming along in terms of the dream of making India a defense, export hub as well, and the defense production hub? Of course, both things will have to go hand in hand.
In the last about 6-7 years, a lot of policy changes have happened, and a very good environment has been created by the government, which is conducive to industry for defense production and also for defense exports. Now, if you look at the figures, in 2016, our defense exports had stood at around 1,500 crores. And the figures which have just come yesterday reflect 15,920 crores of exports. This is a huge growth as far as the export is concerned. And I think 2-3 major things have happened. One, Indian private industry has been, the spirit of entrepreneurship has been unleashed. And Indian private industry can, and I'm looking at it from the future point of view, that this is 15,000 crores this year. Next year, we will definitely cross 2,500 crores.
Okay.
And that should be the target for next year, to meet the Prime Minister's vision of 35,000 crores by 2020.
Sorry, next year you're saying 25,000 crore is the target.
Next year, I want the target to be 25,000 crores.
Okay. Okay.
And that is achievable. We will surpass that. And if I look at the present landscape, Indian private industry led growth in in the export sector has been there. There's a lot of potential as far as defense PSUs are concerned. The recently corporatized OFB factories, they have never thought about exports in yesteryears. They need an injection of entrepreneurship, of sticking their neck out and taking risk, going out into the world and selling their ware. That is possible, and perhaps we will need to bring some private sector resources who are available. Retired people are available, a lot of experience for exports. They can be roped in, and probably the capacities which exist in their DPSUs can also be utilized. I'm very upbeat about it.
Okay. We'll come to the other part as well, because this is a capital intensive, industry, and we'll also discuss as to how things can move further ahead from here onwards. But Ajay, you've kept a close watch on how things have developed over the years, as Mr. Mishra was also pointing out. Tenfold increase in 6 years is not a mean task to fulfill when we're talking about defense exports in this sector specifically. So when we look at what was there and what we have achieved right now, the journey, how do you look at the journey in terms of both policy changes and also the kind of steps which have been taken by the private sector also?
I'll address it in two parts. First of all, Vishal, let us first understand a 10 times increase in the past 6 years. The fiscal ending March 31st, 2017 had an export of 1522 crores. Today we are at 15,920 crores. That's a tenfold increase. Point number one. This increase has happened primarily because our private sector has stepped up. The DPSUs have stepped up following policy changes. This is a given fact. Now, I believe that what Mr. Mishra was suggesting, a 25,000 crore, it could go even higher next year, because if we manage a few big ticket sales like the BrahMos or a few warships or small offshore patrol vessels or even vehicles, which large number of efforts we are making in Africa at the moment, this number will rise exponentially. When you see 10 times growth in the next 6 years, we could be standing at 50,000 crores. Very easily. I can see this happen. Because large number of countries have expressed an interest in our weaponry. Okay. One, it is reliable. The artillery guns are a hit across the world. People are inquiring about them. The BrahMos, of course, it's a joint venture with the Russians, so it has certain controls. But in case of the artillery gun, it is made by the private sector in India. It can be exported anytime. The smaller warships, which are called offshore patrol vessels, they can be exported anytime. They are made in India. We're already supplying to Sri Lanka. And I'll just update your viewers out here that L&T is doing a repair and maintenance for US Navy warships. Okay. So this is also kind of an export, because you are doing it for a country, you are generating income which is coming from abroad, but you are actually supplying services to another country. So if you see it, it may not be counted in exports, but you're supplying services to another country. Okay. So that's a very vital point. Okay. I see this growing, as to conclude, Vishal, my point, I see this growing exponentially in the next 5 to 7 years, because of the big ticket items which we are going to now sell to several countries.
But the second part of my question, that is how do you believe the private sector has added to this? Because that is where the key lies. DPSUs have been there, they're working, but it's a private sector's involvement which is going to bring in.
Private sector, Vishal, to answer it, I'll answer it very bluntly, has some joint ventures. Tata has some joint ventures, Mahindra has a joint venture, Godrej is supplying casings for the BrahMos and also for the space satellites. L&T is doing work on its own, but I would actually want all the private sector listening that please step up, step out, take the risk. At the moment, the private sector is going for joint ventures. Step out, take the risk, hire people from outside, start making. They are selling vehicles, they're selling guns to several countries. Step up. That is what I want to say.
Okay. Mr. Nayan, when we are talking about policy ecosystem and the policy changes, there have been many. And they're tucked here and there, but they've made a lot of difference. For example, giving free access of DRDO's patents to the private industry, access to the MOD's testing facilities as well. These are some of the measures which seem to have made a lot of impact. Apart from that, what do you think has actually changed the game over a period of years?
So first, I would like to get into this definitional issue. First, services are also included in exports.
Indeed.
So it has to be. So let us count it. Second, the statistics which we are quoting, it is of only category 6 item of SCOMET, the special chemicals, organisms, material, equipment and technology. If you go through category 5, you will find several aerospace items in it. And this SCOMET, this category 6, has been recently populated. In 2015, it has been populated. Before that, in DGFT list, SCOMET list, it was not figuring. So I think we'll have, once we do statistical jugglery, they will find that in real terms, export has really risen up. Just now from last year, it is about 24-25%. If you include this category 5 items, there are other categories also. There will perceptible impressive increase in it. This is another issue. Now you are talking what has changed, and here I come to the industry part. Generally, industry has been accusing that we have got single vendor system industry and it is not working well. And then there were some, say, conceptual, philosophical issues, whether we should export, what should we export, whether and in what to what countries we should export. These were the issues which were dogging, and these were causing dilemmas to the policymakers and others also. So we have resolved many of the dilemmas. Okay. Like we are, and industry's complaint is that until and unless we get the order domestically, it is very difficult to sell it outside. So government over the years has taken several proactive measures. One was bringing around 310 items under the negative list. So many of the items, like many countries, I mean, SIDM was also protesting about, like ATGMS, Bharat Forge was making, and it believed that its order will go somewhere else. So these domestic companies have started getting orders, and it is sending a positive image outside. This is one. Second, two industrial corridors which we are talking about is just wrapped up the production capacity. Besides that, in defense attaches, which were generally resistant to the idea of becoming salespersons of the companies, Indian companies. So now government has sent several booklets to them and asked them to translate it into the local languages and just to distribute it. So Indian mission and Indian defense attaches are also getting integrated with the overall export control system. Put like our philosophy, I am saying, the philosophy that we should not appear promoting defense industrial complex, which we are in the Cold War days and in our socialist mindset, we were highly critical of. Now we are resolving that philosophical dilemma also. We are saying that if we are exporting anything, we are exporting it not only to enrich our defense industrial complex. In fact, we are taking care of the security of the recipient country. Idea is not to just push and become profit oriented, but it is we are meeting their needs also. So it also kind of resolved their dilemma. Besides what we found, that earlier, if you see the composition of the materials which are or items which was exported, you'll find generally it was offset driven items. And still, now what you just demonstrate out, you just brought to our notice, all spare parts or some components are there. So now these are, which we generally call in loose language, supply chain companies, supply chain initiatives. So the items which you are quoting are basically supply chain items. So now the whole system, BrahMos has just been mentioned, and BrahMos had got around 80 plus 50,000 crore order.
Indeed.
Its order book is full now. So now our challenge would be to diversify and enter into the major systems. And only then will emerge as a major
big ticket items is something which Ajay was also referring to. Mr. Mishra, coming back to the industry part and what Ajay was saying, that time for the private industry players, most of them, to take that risk, come out. Of course, it's a capital intensive industry, as I was saying earlier. So in terms of both opportunities and challenges, from the industry's point of view, how do you see it? Because some items we will have to look at, which are targets which are easily achievable. But then from the industry's point of view, we'll also have to look at as to what are the challenges there.
Vishal, there are about 25 companies in the country which make systems and large equipments. But there is a huge value chain, as was mentioned, and this value chain we should not trivialize because the volumes are very high. And some of these value chain items are also very high technology, like for example, titanium parts for aerospace. Now, till now, I'll just mention two aspects. One is, in SIDM, I am receiving at least 2 delegations per month, 2 or more. Now, these are coming primarily from the Middle East, African countries, Southeast Asian countries, and some Central Europe and Central Asia and Western Europe. And these are very serious buyers. These buyers who are coming in are all very high-level delegation led by either their ministers, or in some cases their defense minister or the service chiefs, or in some cases the NSA is also leading it. Our own delegations of private industry and public sector industry, because in SIDM we have both, we are sending out delegations at least 1 or 2 per month. And these are also going to developed countries, UK, France, US, etc. Till now, the discussion used to be what they want to sell us, big ticket items. We have now started reiterating our intention that it's all right that you want to sell your systems to us, but we would like to we would like to get integrated with your supply chains. Now, those supply chains are big.
Okay.
And they will supplement our effort of making missiles and our Tejas and our helicopter, the combat helicopter, etc. These are all going to be exported.
Okay.
But the large, medium and small scale industry, which is part of the value chain of all these, is very important because there is volume, there is numbers, and there is employment. Because they generate more employment rather than the bigger ones. And Indian industry is now, through SIDM and through with the help of the government, is negotiating very strongly with the US. I'll take that for example. In US, there is a legislation which is called DFARS. It means that if you want to supply something to the defense industry in US, the metal has to be molted either in US or affiliated countries. Now that is, it's a non-tariff barrier for us. Now till now we have not emphatically fought that. We have started doing
But these are some aspects which which will have to be looked into and cleared first, so that you enter into the big league out there, so as to speak. Ajay, when we are looking at this overall ecosystem, these changes as well, and so far so good. The policy changes also, the initiative taken by private sector also. But as Mr. Mishra is pointing out, certain challenges there. That is one. And two, in your view, when we look at the overall bouquet which we have to offer, which we are working on, or perhaps we've mastered it as well, what are the key items which we can focus on in perhaps, say, next 5 years to come, the target which has been set?
Surely, Vishal, but before that, I'll just add something with the two gentlemen pointed out. The supply chains, we are doing around 2,000 small parts and assemblies for the US.
Okay.
Just for our viewers, around 2,000 small parts and assemblies go to the US. To answer your question, the big ticket items which I really also spoke about, artillery guns is one, warships is two, because we have achieved a great degree of automation and indigenization on the warships. These could be smaller frigates, this could be bigger warships, smaller African countries, Middle Eastern countries, or even Southeast Asian countries in the Indo-Pacific. They may not be able to purchase a warship from the US or the British market or the French market, but they can of course afford a warship from the Indian market. Of course, we are yet to make a marine engine, but most of the warship now is made in India. The radars, everything is made in India, the missiles, everything. So it has got a good export potential. Artillery guns is, as I mentioned too, Tejas has never had an accident, keep in mind. Tejas is giving a serious contention, serious fight to several single-engine light combat aircrafts across the world in various contenders. Okay, yes, we are yet to establish ourselves. The world is looking at us. It will take some time for them to accept that we are also there. Korea has taken around 40 years to reach there.
Indeed.
We have just started. So let us give it some time. Don't say that we can happen tomorrow. This is no magic man that you do this and it will happen. It cannot happen like that. People are watching the Tejas very intently. Its growth is being watched. And when you announce that we are making the Mark II Tejas and the AMCA, the world is watching us. They know that India will do it and will surely do it.
Okay.
It is a matter of only of an engine, which of course we are talking to two major countries, major engine makers at the moment, for an aero engine to be made in India. So those two countries are in advanced talks and they will be soon announced, I'm sure about it. Next comes the part of land vehicles.
Land vehicles.
Mahindra's, Tata's, Ashok Leyland have done brilliant work in land vehicles and are doing a large number of supply in African countries, even to the UN missions. And I'm sure they can modify the land vehicles for all-terrain use and all-terrain purposes. They have the technology and the wherewithal to do it. The next step, of course, is land vehicles. Of course, now Mahindra is doing, L&T is doing a lot of armored vehicles. The lighter tanks, which we call the BMPs in India, the Russian name BMPs. The lighter tanks are being done. That is also very, people thought the tanks are out of business. Don't know they are not, because tanks are used as a armored space to fire something today, as the battle changes. So these 4-5 items, Vishal, I see can be big changes for us.
Okay. In the times to come, provided
of course, I would add the missiles also, the Akash missiles.
Yes, and time is the key factor here. We'll have to be persistent and consistent in our efforts also. Mr. Nayan, you were mentioning earlier, certain challenges we were talking about as to achieve those targets. But what all three of you are saying in terms of what can be done or what needs to be done, what are the challenges which we are looking at? And this is not only from the industry's point of view or from the time factor point of view, because we'll also have to perhaps evolve maybe further evolve our policies, in the years to come to keep pace with the way things are moving ahead, with the kind of, entry, as Mr. Mishra was saying, we want in the supply chain throughout the global supply chain system?
And no doubt. First of all, we are changing our mindset. First, our orientation was to procure from outside.
Okay.
So we are basically focusing on DPP, Defense Procurement Procedure how to procure. Now we have started looking outward. It was unthinkable once that India would be emerging as an export, our defense export player. I mean, till very recently, it was just talking. And 6-7 years ago, when I had worked on this topic, and when I worked, then what we had discovered that this is basically offset-oriented, offset-induced like growth which was taking place. But now we are really thinking seriously to export outside. And now some potential areas have been pointed out. And one point which I missed to tell you about in the last segment, like Ordnance Factory Board, even before corporatization, had exported some items. So that needs improvement, no doubt about it. So now it has been corporatized and now it has got the challenge. And it has come out with its challenge, like even artillery gun. It produced some of the artillery guns before time. Once generally our indigenous production is condemned for not producing on time and project over delays, all these things are attached, all the stigmas is attached to it. So now it is coming out. Second is engine, which we are just talking about Tejas engine. Tejas engine, again, unfortunately, we are talking only in terms of buying it from outside, but people are not aware that the revolution which Manohar Parrikar had done, we are really seriously moving towards developing our own indigenous system, indigenous engine, and we are seriously working in Pune, our Pune lab. DRDO is doing another great job. Even artillery gun. Artillery gun is the best gun, it is being called, designed by DRDO, and 3 companies consortium, Bharat Force, Mahindra and Tata Power, ACD, now it has been merged, so now it is Tata Power.
Okay.
So they have went out of the country to get the trial done. And they produced the video and then they put pressure on the system that we are giving you the best system. So now our people, our companies have taken up the challenge. And government is definitely, as you have rightly pointed out, will it evolve? Definitely it will evolve. So many times we have evolved our DPP. So why can't we evolve our defense production policy or export policy? In fact, it is being done. Like licensing. Earlier it was 3 years, tenure, now it is 15 years, plus 3 years can also be given to you. So this is the thing. Again, automation. Like once you apply it directly on the portal has been created, and this portal will give you everything from end to end. Besides third point, I just ended by saying it, like for startups, startups are coming out as a great player, new players. For them, around 1,000 crore rupees have been allocated.
And there lies the key as well.
So this is how government, once you feel the need that this is the gap, and the government is coming out to fill that gap. So this will, of course, continue.
Quick, one last quick question before we bring this to an end, Mr. Mishra. I would like to ask you that because so far in the discussion we've been, saying that what is it that the private industry can do? As Ajay was also saying that they will have to come out and make some efforts. But from the other perspective also, what is it that the industry would want the government to do more?
One thing which we have recently discussed is to have an Export Promotion Council for Defence. We have just started the discussion. It will go a long way because, and not in the traditional sense of like export promotion councils were made 30 years back. Times have changed. The structure and the purpose of this Defence Export Promotion Council could be different. And the government is very open. I've had very preliminary discussions on it, and they are open for an evolved structure which will help the Indian, not only private sector, but also the public sector industries to forge ahead in the present form. And one important thing which we just mentioned is the advantage India is very strong. The advantage India today is that we are able to produce at cost competitive prices globally accepted products. That's very important. And that is the USP which is going to make Indian exports forge ahead.
And sustain in the long term there as well. Thank you so much, Mr. Mishra, Mr. Rajiv, Nayan, and Ajay as well for sharing your valuable inputs and insight. As our experts were pointing out clearly, all aspects of India's path ahead on Atmanirbharta or self-reliance in defense production, which then further leads on to defense exports as well. We have set the ball rolling, and the numbers say it all. Almost a 10-fold growth in 6 years when we're talking about defense exports. More to do, more challenges to overcome as well. But we'll keep a close watch here and keep on bringing you all the details and come back again with a different topic. Till then, keep watching Sansad Television. Thank you.